is under attack. As you will probably know, at the beginning of this year, we helped facilitate the takeover of the investigation into Tommy Robinson's alleged bankruptcy. Last year, Tommy Robinson declared himself bankrupt in order to avoid paying hundreds of thousands of pounds in court fees and damages from a libel case that he lost against a Syrian refugee. As a consequence of our investigation, and as a consequence of our repeated exposés of his assets, he and his associates have gone on the attack against us. They have been watching our houses. They have been confronting us and family members out in the streets. They've gone to the police with all sorts of stupid and malicious stories against us. They have done all this in order to intimidate us, to harass us, and ultimately to silence us. But we will not be silent. We will not be bullied, and we will not back down. We are asking you to support this crowdfunder so we have the tools and assets to fight back. We need to increase security in our houses. We need to employ lawyers to take on Tommy Robinson and Paul Golding and their lies. And we need more money to carry on our investigation. We are all on this now. We will not.
Oh, you see this guy? See this guy? Number one bullshit guy. He do the wee woo wee woo.
Support us.
I thought my jokes were bad. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Chris Mitchell podcast. Another fantastic episode lined up. Hope everyone in the chat is all well and good. Great guest today with us. My name's Chris Mitchell. I am part of the Independent Nationalist Network. We will get onto that. You can find our links in the description. I've also left Alex links to his Telegram page and to his website, and obviously we're going to discuss that very shortly. Let's introduce the co-host and the co-founder of the INN. I told him to wear black. We need to hit those diversity quotas, don't we? So, although he's a bit blurry, He's got dial-up internet, obviously. So let's hand the mic over to Anglo Joe. How are you, sir?
Good evening. Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. Yeah, absolute pleasure to be here talking with Alex. It's going to be a great conversation. Really looking forward to it. Going to delve in some pretty cool topics.
Thank you for being here tonight, sir. Right, so Alex, it's an absolute honor to have you on the show. I'm a bit nervous, but we'll get there. So how are you, first of all?
Well, I don't generally do well in the sweltering weather that we're having just at the moment, gentlemen, but all right, actually. I've just been in Britain for several weeks and just come back to my dear wife and having a bit of a relaxed time of it and trying to get stuck into my new workload because as of April, I'm commissioning editor at ukcolumn.org. So that's pretty much the main thing I do at the moment other than Bible translation. So it's keeping me busy, which is a good thing to see.
That's good. What part of England did you go to, if you don't mind me asking?
My dad's from Clackmannanshire, which is a very small Scottish county near Stirling, and my mum's from Cheshire. And I was born in Leicester. And
I'm sorry to hear that, sir. I'm so sorry to hear that.
When I was less than a year old, they moved to Bedfordshire, and I'm the only son. So that's where I grew up. But then I went off to boarding school at Rugby when I was 12, and then Cambridge. So from here and there.
Yeah, and how did you find it growing up? Obviously, thankfully, you didn't really get to grow up in Leicester. Obviously, Leicester and Birmingham pretty much alike. So it's not a great city, is it really? With what's happened with mass immigration and whatnot.
No, well, and Bedford and Luton were both equidistant from where I grew up. A few miles down the road each way, and things were getting a bit tense already when I was growing up. But we could just about cope with it. I think what they now call community relations have been, irreparably severed since 9/11 and the subsequent prevent strategy, really. At which time, by the way, I was a counterterrorism officer at GCHQ, and it was as a surprising to me, as unexpected to me, and I think my colleagues as it was to everyone else, when overnight the government announced this prevent strategy. It wasn't intelligence led as far as I could see, but yes, I have developed good relations with the thinking Muslims, the upright Muslims and the righteous ones, and so did my dad. And he testifies often that, you know, it was 9/11, the clampdown in their community that paid to that, because they were then terrorized by their own people out of speaking to Christians. And to be honest, although I've met some of the very finest Muslims around in Bedfordshire, far more hospitable and intellectual than most of my other neighbours, it's also true that my parents have mentored a stream of young men from the Luton primary and secondary schools in particular, who have got some real horror stories about what it is to be English in one of those schools. And that has to be said as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, growing up in Birmingham, it could be tough. And we obviously, like I've seen, you're very much aware of the grooming gang issue. And we've got obviously a story that I think came out today on that, actually, which we want to delve into a little bit later on. But, you know, it used to warm me up coming out of my school, and you could see them all lining up with their cars, beeping their horns at the young girls. And obviously, as a school kid, you can't really do much about it. And if you did say something, mate, you're getting 30 Muslims jump on you. And but again, you know, I've known some great Muslims. But again, our cultures differ. You know, we shouldn't be. We were never asked. They pushed it all into one area. You know, like when I was growing up, it was a super majority white area. And then it got to about 12, 13, you know, the hard nuts, the hard guys of that area started getting ASBOs, and they started flooding a massive Muslim population in. And that's how I got started, pretty much on the Tommy Robinson train, because I seen like he was the one highlighted by the media. So you're thinking, who's actually standing up? Obviously, not support for other reasons I won't really delve into on a show. It's irrelevant. But he was the one that, you know, I looked up to a little bit, because he was the one that was standing up against the Islamic grooming gangs.
I think the main thing was it was the only thing, wasn't it? Really, yeah. And they were the sort of the only people really talking about it. And the same sort of thing happens for patriotic alternative. You know, like where you might not sort of see eye to eye on all of their views. I mean, you know, they are essentially, or were, the only real kind of organisation that's kind of on the ground and people meeting and getting to know people that are a bit more like you. You know, it's and I think that it's a bit of a travesty, really, isn't it, that these sorts of things happen. You know, I think there should be a variation to your kind of where your feelings are with things, and the groups that are out there to sort of cater for you. And I guess that's why the INM was created in the first place. You know, to give that bit of a wider umbrella. You know, where you're not just going to get. You know, you're not going to come into our chat and just be demolished by everyone just because you don't understand something as thoroughly as someone else does. You know, if anything, really, we're there to kind of help people and most certainly sort of push away from this. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of it, Alex, but this whole Fed posting, you know, anonymity Fed posting thing, you know, it's very dangerous. You know, I've tried to be very vocal about this and tried to talk to people as much as possible. And sort of warn people away from doing these things, because I mean the amount of guys that are going to jail up and down the country just simply for making a comment on Facebook or Telegram, you know, and then that coupled in with owning a book that's available to anyone to own, immediately lands you in a 4-year sentence, you know, and that's the reality.
It shouldn't if the jury knew what their role was. We're supposed to have, you know, the liberty and the safeguard in English law of the jury saying, I don't care what argument I've just heard, this is nonsense, I'm throwing it out. But these days they'll happily be directed by the judges. You know, that's the sad.
But do you not think it's also a numbers game, Alex? You know, because obviously a lot of the extremism and terrorism is coming from one community. Don't get me wrong, there's other criminality in all ethnic groups, but they need to even out the numbers. You know what I mean? Whereas it's look, it's not just the Muslims that are causing terrorism; it's white people as well. And we're seeing some strong sentences. Obviously, we've seen the National Action, whether you agree or disagree. Like both
and
leaders,
Scottish Dawn, which I found a much more tenuous case. Really, they'd only just gone and taken the loud hailer around Alloa. In fact, the town where my father went to school many decades ago. But that's all they'd done when they got slapped with this disbandment order, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, you touched on it briefly there with the whole prevent thing, and I think that is a big issue. It's, you know, because you have Hope Not Hate are now supplying their information to people like Prevent, which is you've essentially got a lefty grouping of people that are supplying information to a lefty government who hate, you know, any kind of dissident thought. and it's all controlled by the people who are on the complete opposite end of the spectrum to what we are. You know, just to have
I
a
remember
rational discussion.
Yvette Cooper getting very aggressive, as she often does, in a House of Commons committee hearing with the YouTube and Google chiefs for Britain or for Europe, if you remember, a couple of years ago, saying, "I am so offended. I turn YouTube on and the algorithm suggests red ice to me." Do you remember that? Why haven't you banned
like
these
that.
little people?
I think it happened to Tommy Robinson as well. When I think they took that to the House of Commons. House of Commons. Sorry. Yeah, I think it happened with Tommy Robinson's name. I think that's what led to his YouTube ban in the end. To be fair, because oh no, we've seen a Tommy Robinson video pop up in the suggestions.
Yeah.
Well, it works both ways, you know. UK column, we have a broad range of reporting, as I think you know, but one of the things we were the first on was vaccine damage, COVID vaccine damage. And I know people will say it's not a vaccine, let's just call it COVID jab damage. And the reverse of what you just said, Chris, is that if it gets noticed by the, shall we say, the Blue Rinse Brigade, well, they used to be called that, the Tory Grand Dames, if they read one of our stories and tell their husband, "Darling, this can't be right, go into Whitehall today and find out what's going on," that is also useful, because we were bumped off YouTube effectively, well, not effectively, literally, when Conservative Woman transcribed an interview which we had done with the wife of a man who had got, if I remember correctly, Guillain-Barré syndrome and got paralyzed from his COVID jab.
Wow.
And it was when it was read by a site, when it was covered by a site that was read by at least the wives of some of the big decision makers, that we got squashed.
Wow.
Right.
Of course, the Daily Mail picked up, if I'm not mistaken, the very same man's case, certainly the same symptom of COVID-19 jabs, just a matter of weeks later, and was not banned, of course.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've seen this. We've seen a lot of cancellations, and you've got to look at the credits. You know, Matthew Letizia, probably like a really high-profile former footballer, like a legend in the game. Look how much he's being cancelled now, and he's having to resort to different kind of shows now, if he must, because the mainstream media will not touch him. Oh, he's just a lunatic. Matthew Letizia, he's done all this great football, but it all goes out the window now. You know, you even as Southampton fans, you know, I had pictures of him on the wall. He was my idol for 40 years, but now he's coming out with this conspiracy nonsense. He just threw it all in the bin. And you know, that's what the media do. They just betray us as nut jobs. When and it's a shame. But the people watching it, you know, they're sheep. They should be listening and looking at the facts. Again, sticking onto the not football, but the sports subjects. How many high level of professionals have been collapsing over, over the jab? Do you know what I mean? It's just unheard of. Like you might get the odd one that might collapse and have a cardiac arrest, but it was like a sudden, you know, is it just a coincidence that loads and loads of sports people, from tennis players to basketball players to footballers to American footballers, sports across the whole globe, if some people call it flat, if there is anyone watching calls it flat, on the flat earth, just collapsing with the same issues, same heart problems, cardiac arrest, etc.
You might want to look at the blog of a New York University academic called Mark Crispin Miller. It's on Substack, because he has made it his goal to document as many of the sudden deaths that he can find of people in their prime. Yeah,
if you don't mind, send me the link after in case I forget. Right. Yeah. Well, I'll just watch it back when it's aired. Yeah, interesting, because like I'm always in many arguments. I've gone back to Facebook to basically promote the INN. I'm trying to keep it a little bit cleaner than I would before.
Good for you. I'm having, you know, even on my Telegram channel, the links at the scroll at the bottom, Eastern Approaches. I've tried to shape it very explicitly to be a thinker's channel. You know, and as I say in the channel description, it's geopolitics, Christianity, education, constitution, and yet not every day, but as it happens, I had two today. People swearing at each other, and they would regard themselves as intellectually and socially superior, you know, but they're not above it. And, you know, having a go, I lay it on, I put pinned posts in, and regularly I remind people, don't swear at each other, you'll get banned, but they still do it.
Well, they say swearing is the lowest form of vocabulary, isn't it?
It is, and people resort to it when they get really stressed out, don't they? But good for you as well to have called yourselves Independent Nationalist Network. Now, I don't want to sort of insinuate anything here, but are you, with that choice of name, saying we want to do things a bit differently from previous nationalist get-togethers?
Absolutely. Go on, Joe. You take the reins on this. You were the co-founder.
Oh, sorry, Chris. I didn't mean to. I just
no. I'm asking you. You took the reins. That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, in both, well, in many aspects, really, we really wanted the independent being in there. It's actually in our founding principles that we remain independent, that we never work for anyone. We'll work with other organisations and with other individuals, but we'll never be overshadowed by anyone. That's the whole idea of the INN, is really to be that shadow for other people from other organisations to be able to come into the INN, and then other people from other groups come into the INN and have rational discussion. And if I can put someone in touch with someone else who can help them out, design a website or anything like that, that's kind of the idea behind it. It also goes, I'll answer your question first with the independent side. Yes, it is to be something different. We want to create a nationalist organisation that is free from donations, because we hate donations, and it's just really cringe asking for money all the time, and it's not necessary.
Waves of nationalists, so many waves of nationalists in Britain and elsewhere have come to ruin, come to grief when they've had one of their top guys accused of having his hand in the till.
Yeah, exactly. And you only need an accusation, and it doesn't even have to have any weight behind it. But as soon as it's out there, you're dealing with all kinds of drama that you just don't want to be dealing with. So that's one of the main things is not donations, which actually will scare away a lot of the egos that want to involve themselves in the INN as well. People who want to come in and take over and be the kind of the leader, which is really funny, because we've also put into the founding principles that it's a leaderless organisation. So not any one of us own the INN. Rich doesn't own it. I don't own it. We all own it. We all work together, and we build it up together. So that it's not going to end up just with one person at the top of the pyramid, so to speak.
So the Chancellor is going to be discouraged from the start, because he's going to join and basically be asked, great, whose fence posts are you painting first? Rather than giving you a soapbox to stand on. And it also dissuades, as you say, spooks getting involved, because they can't see who the leader is to nobble.
Exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong, we encourage leadership. We encourage people sort of taking the reins, and if you feel that you would like to, I don't know, run a history meet or something, you're a bit passionate about history, well, we encourage you to just go ahead and start that project, and we'll do whatever we can to help you along the way with that. It just kind of makes sense. I just don't see why this hasn't been made sort of 10 years ago, to be honest with you. I think we've been in a much better position. But it's built on honesty, isn't it, and integrity, which unfortunately is a little bit lacking with a lot of nationalism, really. It needs this grassroots movement to really get people pulled back together, because essentially what we're missing is the community spirit, isn't it? You were talking a lot on PWR with Mark, and I picked up on a lot of it, and you actually displayed things in a way that I hadn't even really thought of before, to be honest with you. It's just a different kind of mindset, which I wish we'd have had a bit of a better conversation before doing this stream, to be honest with you, because I would have liked to have sort of just spoken to you about a few other things. But yeah, I think it's great, and I feel like there's a lot of where we're coming from with the INN. When I go through your website and your topic section, I go through, and I've got to be honest, when I did go through it and had a look at a few of the articles, I was really excited, because they're all really big issues and topics that are important to me, and I think are important to our country and everything else. So I really recommend anybody in any of our circles to use the UK column as their sort of go-to news preference, really, because it's brilliant. It's really good. I wish I'd found it sooner. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I can only echo what you just said. He pretty spot on, but it also gives us a chance, because you do see some other organisations, like, it's all about us. It's all about our organisation. Forget about helping anyone else. It's about promoting ourselves. Whereas I think now we're in a position. You've seen a bit of the show last night, didn't you, Alex?
I did. I saw almost all of it. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to just get your opinions on that as well, surely. But we'll stick with the INN for a sec. It's helping like the PTSD camp. No other organisations helping her out. No, they might have done the odd thing for her, but she should be on every show. I mean, like, she is saving lives, genuine lives. There's homeless veterans up and down this country, and like, if she got the promotion by some of these bigger organisations, she'd have housed a lot more, veterans, and possibly could have saved more lives, because the staggering rate at the moment of our veterans ending their lives because they're getting no help from our government, and the government to do what they've done to her as well, raided their house. You know, they should be protecting. They should be saying, like, oh, you're a veteran, okay, I'll tell you what, we won't hand you any money, and we won't help you out, but there is a lady, well, there is a family that will. So they need to be getting all the help they possibly can. Like,
the great and the good in charity world would call this signposting, which is a bit of a pretentious term. But, you know, if you hit any of the other magic buttons, like just arrived in the country, or dependent on drugs, then you do go to the head of the queue for housing and psychology and everything else, right? So veterans should be one of those box checkers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they went. You know, they've obviously got PTSD for a reason, because they've seen their fellow. I'm not even going to say colleagues, best friends, probably best friends, like, get blown up next to them or lose their legs.
Let's cut to the chase. Brian Gerrish has spoken to some, I don't think directly, but to a reliable source who's spoken to some Royal Marines who were counselled by the official military psychos, the counsellors, when they said we have PTSD. They were told, well, you could commit suicide. You know, that's one solution.
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow.
I don't have chapter and verse, but I remember that clearly from a couple of years ago.
Jaw dropping. That is shocking.
And they wonder why male suicide is through the roof, you know.
Well, this gets us on to, it's not popular even on the whole of my channel, but I do say it occasionally, the doctrine of the useless man, you know, the man who's expected not really to have any feelings. And, you know, another strand of what's gone wrong with our society at a very deep level is the deliberate programming of the family courts to allow the theft of children and the unpeopling of fathers, you know. And so many of the best people who've ended up in roughly the position that you two gentlemen and I hold in life now have come through that route. John Waters in Ireland, the spectacular columnist who now has a very good Substack blog, has just written a 2-parter. He speaks from personal experience in the Irish family courts, which are as bad as ours in the 90s, fighting for custody, you know. And he realized slowly through that, and Ireland has it in miniature because all the revolutions, the social sexual revolutions, happened in a short explosive period in the 90s and the 2000s. He says it wasn't about the invention of any family relations or sexual relations. It was about, you know, removing people's inalienable rights and turning them into drones, you know, repurposing what people are.
It's soul destroying.
So, in fact, personally, one of the moments I had my awakening, as it were, was sitting on a park bench in Cheltenham when I was still at GCHQ one sunny day, a bit like today, and having this drunken guy sidle up and sit on the other end of the bench with a can of beer in his hand, and he asked me for a bit of money, and then he sort of looked at me and actually said, some guys would have just thought it, but he said, "Aren't you going to tell me to F off?" I said, well, why should I? You tell me how you got in this situation. So he did, and like so many of them, I don't think he was a veteran, but, you know, he'd ended up homeless, and there was this unbearable pain at lack of access to his children after a divorce, right?
Well,
so
that's it. I mean, like, sorry.
Yeah, just to say that's like so many people have realized that first. And although I don't have any children myself, you know, I was from my undergraduate years onwards very exercised by the state stealing children before I had any inkling that the bottom of that rabbit hole is stealing them to order for abuse, or psychos and abusers cooperating to have as many children as possible placed with abusers. I didn't suspect that then. I just thought it was men and children being regarded as unpeople and as property of feminists. But there's a lot more to it than that, as it turns out.
Well, it's that's very well put. Yeah, I mean, I've unfortunately had to go through that situation twice. I've had to fight my way through court and represent myself in family court, and thankfully won, and everything's fine now. You know, I've got my family back and all that stuff. But I mean, I'm quite honest and quite open about it all. I mean, and I was going through this movement at the same time as well. You know, I ended up divorcing my wife, and you know, she left me. So it was all pretty bad, stopped me seeing my kid and things. And, you know, it led me to what I would call essentially, you know, a nervous breakdown. You know, I did go to the doctors for various other reasons, sort of physical injuries or whatever. And they did ask me, and they said that, you know, you don't look very well. You know, is there anything we can help with? And honestly, my answer was no, thank you. I'll get myself diet, exercise, and, you know, good living, and I'll be okay. Give me a year, and I'll be fine. You know, I've got my friends around me. I eat well, you know, and I treat myself well. And look, you know, 2 years later, I'm good as gold. You know, I'm through it. It's all fine. You know, not a problem. But yeah, I mean, I could have gone down the route of, you know, getting on serotonin and what's it called?
SSRIs, yeah.
Yeah, you know, the sort of the usual suspects. But I mean, that was the first thing that they offered me. You know, they were sort of, oh, you know, we can sort of get you on a course of antidepressants, and you know, you'll be right as rain in a few months. No, no, it was the first thing they offered. You know, no counselling.
Come off them at the end of the day, haven't you? The antidepressants, and you're going to be hooked on the antidepressants. So I don't avoid taking antidepressant. But if there is anyone watching the show that is struggling with mental health, turn to your family, turn to your friends, email Alex or message Alex. I'm sure he can help. Email me or Joe. We've all been through our stuff. But as Joe said, you can get through it through exercising. I highly recommend meditation, yoga. Research the benefits of them. Every benefit you see is exactly how I felt when I went through my depression. So please, if you are struggling, don't keep it locked up.
Definitely don't
forget about the doctor's help. Maybe if you want someone to talk to, but there's many people, many nationalists here that will help and support you and give you as much advice. So yeah, through that little segment there, guys. And yeah, if anyone's struggling, please get in touch with someone, even if it's us.
Yeah, you must.
Well said, Chris. Well said. And it's always good to speak to a stranger as well. You know, it doesn't always help sort of offloading everything that you've got going on, and you know, family members and people who are close to you who are going to remember it. You know, sometimes if you just feel you need to let it all go, just call a stranger, grab someone in the street that you're never going to see again, and just let it all out. It'll make you feel a million times better, I promise you. You know?
Yeah, until you've tried that once, not that I have, but I've seen it happen enough times, you don't know whether you're going to get a sympathetic hearing. You shouldn't assume you're going to get a brush off.
Yeah. True, but I'd like to go back to your little homeless story there, mate. Next to him on the bench, because this is what winds me up. So, like when you talk about homeless people, because you know, all these lefties, all these woke people, oh, Sodom, they wanted to become druggies and alcoholics. That's why they're homeless. These migrants, they're refugees, because they're coming from. I've said this many times on broken record. France is not a war-torn country. So when they're coming here, not from a war-torn country, they're coming here for this. They already have that to get on the dinghy in the first place. So they're not refugees, they're economic migrants. Yeah, and an excuse of, oh, they're druggies. Yeah, they probably are now because they have no life. They're literally outside 24/7. No one helps them. Pretty much everyone ignores them in the street. So yeah, maybe they are on drugs and drink now. Maybe, and obviously there might be a few that's the reason why they are homeless is because of that in the first place. But I think it's still down to us to help our people, whether they're homeless and whether...
This is the whole purpose of charity. It's discretionary spending. An organisation, a church is a very good example, not the only one, benefits from charitable status or just any kind of arm's length status, any protection under law, precisely because it makes the difference between the deserving and the undeserving. Now, I know this sounds Victorian to some, talking about the indigent and the undeserving poor and so on, but we all make those judgments many times a day. And one expression of that as an individual is if you're going down the street and you see someone begging, in a split second, you're going to have a sympathy with them or not. You know, for some years now, I've been pretty generous when I see one of my own kind, shall I say.
Absolutely.
Same. You know, an Englishman begging in the street, you know, I tend to give him more than others. I don't refuse others, but I think to myself, he's nearer to me. He could be my kin. You know, I could have gone his path in life. But, you know, we're wrapped over the knuckles for thinking that way, aren't we? But, you know, and in many cases, they'll either be a jettisoned father or a veteran. In fact, I think very few will be the begging Englishmen these days who are not an estranged father or a veteran. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, mate, I'm from Birmingham, and honestly, you know how we're the minority in Birmingham. I don't think I've seen one non-white homeless person in all my time in Birmingham.
Very rarely. Very rarely.
I've not seen one. I've literally left about 7 years ago, but I'm still like, I'm 32, 33 this year. I'm an old and I'm getting there. I'll be getting a free bus pass soon. But I rarely see. Well, I haven't seen any non-white on the streets, but I've seen a white lady, probably 30s as well. I was devastated. I had no change on me, so I smoked tobacco. So I just gave her a big clump of tobacco, and she was very grateful for that. So I've done a good deed, but I was gutted because I normally try and give change, but I don't really come across that many ladies that are on the streets compared to men, obviously. But yeah, I've done a good deed with that, I believe.
I think
Well,
it's
there's a
also a
safety
massive
network for
shame.
everyone except the white man, isn't it? That's why.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
There was one homeless person I gave a $5 or $2 before, and then the following week, a few days later, I see the person driving in a van, and then the next day I seen her, and she was like, "Yes, can I have money?" It's like, "Mate, you've got more money than me." It's like, "No, I'm not. I'm homeless. You've got a van. I've got nothing. I've got to get on a bloody bus here. I have to get on a bus. So I'm sorry. I'll give it to someone more rewarding than some scammer."
That goes on. You know, my dad was an inspector of taxes for many years, and for the first 8 years of their marriage, my parents were in the Wirral. So, you know, he would, in those days, he would investigate cases of beggars, I think in Chester in this case, who would go home in Mercedes-Benz.
Wow.
So, you know, this is back in the 70s, though, when everything was safe and you could just play that lark of, you know, I'm a beggar, help me out here, because, you know, there were no serious threats to people back then.
Yeah. Still wrong, though, when there's serious beggars on the street. That person's taking money away from someone that genuinely deserves it. And then obviously if someone might have done what I've done, found out and thought, you know what, I'm never going to help any homeless people ever again because of that woman or that bloke just stole from me, and it already has like a car, like a Mercedes or whatever, and that might put people off. So it's wrong. It is wrong.
The thing is, it is one of those kind of double-edged swords, isn't it? And I guess, you know, even if you went back, I don't know, probably not 10 years ago, but definitely 15 years ago, you know, the British Legions were up and running. You know, the working men's clubs, the you know, the veteran social clubs, they were all very well funded and still very active. And I think a lot of these vets used to end up in these kind of social clubs, and I think that's where they found their support network from.
Yeah.
I mean, even around here, I mean, there's three British Legions that I know of that have all been demolished in the past couple of years. You know, it's just the whole network, the whole thing that used to keep this country going. You know, it's all just falling apart bit by bit by bit by bit.
Yeah.
You know,
and every time I come back to Britain, I see that charity Help for Heroes is getting more and more and more prominent. And there are some questions that are being asked about how they got to that position and what they do with their money.
I haven't delved into that, though, to be fair. So
there is a lot of money going into that as well.
There is a lot of money, yeah. That's probably the most known one, isn't it, for the soldiers? Yeah.
They're not the most known
shady pasts. Sorry, while we're speaking shady pasts, I should remember that as you started out with that Nick, what's his name from Hope Not Hate, Lowell, that's his name. Yes, nothing to do with him personally, but you want maybe to look at an ITV documentary about Red Action from the 1990s. Red Action is a group of idealistic and quite savage white Marxists operating in England in the 90s who, it is argued in that ITV documentary, offered themselves up to the IRA as lily whites, otherwise known as clean hands, clean skins, to bomb Warrington in 1993.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Right, that's been on mainstream television with some serious evidence behind it. And that organization slowly bled into what became Hope Not Hate.
Yeah,
wow.
That video, I just thought it was brilliant to put on. Sorry that you had one swear word in there. I forgot about that. My apologies to you and your audience, whoever may be watching. But yeah, I just think it was quite funny. They targeted me, they've targeted Joe, they've wrote loads of lies about us, and you know, and they try and destroy lives on a daily basis, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
So, like for now, like, I mean, I don't endorse Tommy Robinson and Paul Golding, but if they've got evidence to go at them, and to see them now like crying in their cameras, begging for cash while they all label every one of us, they're only in it for money. They're well sourced anyway. I don't even know why they're asking for money. They're in every article every hit piece that's done on nationalist organisations or civic nationalist organisation. They're always involved. They always have a say. So I'm sure they can afford the solicitors themselves without begging for cash.
You'd think so.
Right, I just want to go to the GCHQ. That's it, right? What made you go for this position? And what made you go for this position? We'll do it now.
Well, people's idea of what they could become in life is in large measure determined by their upbringing or the kind of parents they had, isn't it? And you've got many people who are brought up, for example, in entrepreneurial households who just, by default rule out anything that isn't starting a business because that's the only thing they've seen mum and dad and other relatives doing. And in my case, especially as I'm an only son, I was rather attuned to what my parents were doing, and they were both in different branches of public service, although they changed from one job to the other down the years, but it was all largely public service, the public sector.
Yeah.
So it was just an assumption on my part that whatever was the noblest thing in that branch of the economy if society is what I would go for. And I always had an aptitude for languages, and I came back after my Cambridge degree, which was in obscure languages. I came back from the former Soviet Union with 2 former Soviet languages, and Mum said, "Have you seen that GCHQ are recruiting?" I'd vaguely heard of them, not more than that, but I thought, well, obviously these are the pinnacle people for my skills. And I had a strong ethos of serving the Crown as well. But I did tell the vetting officer when I joined in 2001 that I would serve under a King Charles. I could see things were going the wrong way, and that Charles wouldn't be worthy of the coronation oath when the time came, which time is probably very near now. He's proven he won't live up to it. But it was, it was the noblest thing I could think of doing. And I didn't go in the least naively, because both my parents had enough warnings about what really went on in public service and how the conscientious didn't get to the top. I knew that, and I did have bouts of, I will say, depression, although it wasn't clinically diagnosed, towards the end of that time, out of utter frustration with what was going on. And that wasn't rare, particularly for the linguists I've discovered.
But can I ask you what frustration that was going on? I mean, I'm sure we probably know, but just for you to confirm.
There's a lot of, I don't think it will have got any better since, probably worse, but there's a lot of make work schemes, right? So as in any civil service department, when a minister visits or whatever, you're going to have the head of section saying, "Look busy, guys, or we'll lose our funding," or there'll be questions asked. Oh, I understand that. Nevertheless, it got my goat that when there were times when a target, whether it was a state target or a non-state target, such as a terrorist group, was known to be not up to much, or we had got to the bottom of what they were up to for a while, if they were politically sexy, we were still expected to throw lots of people on that effort, just so that the minister could come around and say, "Oh yes, all these little heads at desks working on that target, jolly good." Yeah. And in 2005, I got a twofer, a double whammy, because you'll well remember I don't know how old you were at the time, because you're quite a young thing, but the 7th of July
2005.
Yes. Yeah, so you're well aware of what went on. And a fortnight later, of course, there were the failed alleged attempts to bomb London in the same manner, and that was the day when Jean-Charles Jimenez was killed under the infamous command of the now former commissioner of the Met, Cressida Dick. And that was the summer that things changed for me, because from the spring that year, I had been on shifts for an Afghanistan Special Forces operation doing geolocation, and in the summer of that year, they put me on the team, not for the response to 7/7, but for the response to 21/7. So the days of the day when the ripcords failed to go off and when Jimenez was shot. So put on those targets. And they had me on shifts basically from, I think it was March 05, I went into that Afghan operation. And then from July straight onto that CT operation for domestic stuff through to November, for goodness sake.
Wow.
So random shifts, a week of lates, a week of earlies, a week of nights. And we had sod all to do. Well, I would say now that, and I would say this of 7/7 as well. Now I've looked into Muad'Dib's research and others, that there wasn't a signals intelligence trail, precisely because the guys were patsies like all the others, and they had been told, right, do your patriotic duty, and we're doing a dry run, it's a drill, and then they were turned into patsies. That's what I would believe now. But however you wish to explain the background to it, the long and the short of it was everyone on the shift realised there was no email trail or phone trail there. But, we were told several times during that autumn, we can't stand you down. The ministers still think it's really important. So that gets to people. I was right in my vigorous prime. I was, 26, that year. But, we were all bringing in DVD players to watch films overnight. There was absolutely nothing to do. And we knew that it was just going through the motions. Even on the day job, in the Arabic language section, the Russian language section, the Chinese language section, I and other linguists like me, and I've spoken to some since leaving the department, who had the same experience, because it's a small world in professional linguistics in Britain, and you bump into people. In my case, I've met one who's become another interpreter at the European Parliament, which is something I do freelance, yeah, because I live on the continent anyway. I'm not on the staff, but I do it freelance when they want me. I bumped into these guys, and they said, well, I had the same experience. I said, well, a lot of what we're doing is useless, and we know it, and it's just looking good. And besides, a lot of these hurriedly retrained guys, I have to say, particularly the military retrainees who were given what they call a turbo Croat course, a really quick course in a Balkan language or something, they're no good, and they could start World War III if their transcript is taken at face value. I'm afraid there's military and civilian linguists who retrained as adults who are not near native speakers of the language. And I know this now I've been an interpreter for some years, that you wouldn't dare do this. It's against the ethics of the profession. But if it's only national security and you're only an RAF or Royal Navy or GCHQ civil linguist, you'll do this. You'll say, well, I didn't quite get that word. Well, sod it, I'll make it this, right? There was an infamous case in the Balkans War. There's several Balkans War, but the Kosovo period, when a Russian general was intercepted saying, I'm going to take my troops to the bathhouse, right? But in Russian, that's v banyu, and it was interpreted as valbanyu, I'm taking my troops into Albania. And that transcript very nearly started World War III.
Wow.
Right? That's the kind of thing that happens. And, as I say, I've met Arabic linguists and Chinese linguists since who were serving at the same time, just a couple of doors down from me in the same building at the same time. And they were bringing this up with their heads of section, and they were told, shut your gob. We don't want you to be saying this. Keep your head down, enjoy the salary, enjoy the secondary perks of being in the civil service and being unsackable and feeling superior, and just get on with it.
What about
this is a lot of the trouble, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely it is. But there's GCHQ and NSA do some good in the world. Obviously, their massive bulk, however, their massive bulk ensures that what they do is ultimately they're a massive siphoning operation, I would say, and the private contractors, and all roads lead back to the city of London and Tel Aviv ultimately. And it's not just me saying that. There's been several, like an Ohio journalist, Millennial Millie, or whatever she calls herself, who've found the same from other angles. These guys go out of service. They're still in the private contractors who hold the data and do the actual hard interception for the signals intelligence agencies. And that pipeline goes back to Israel. So that you see what it's there for. It's there so that the collections, including domestically in the Five Eyes countries now, are siphoned off and put in a big pool, which becomes mirrored to a private pool, which goes off into who knows where. Yeah, sure. So it's all on the taxpayers' money as well. So those nefariously benefiting from it don't have to fund it.
Did they ever make you like? Did you have to like spend much time on? Obviously, it was back 2001, 2004 was it? Did you spend much time on any white nationalist group to try and make something up of that?
No, that was coming in towards the end of my time. They tried to retain me. They thought, well, I wouldn't say hotshot. I think my colleagues of that period would laugh at me because I wasn't motivated. So that's the last thing they would have called me. But they saw I had the brains for it. And the head of section in the very cutting edge part of counterterrorism recruited me when those shifts ended and said, I want you working on something quite cutting edge, the modus operandi online of terrorists, right? So this was, the guys in London and Birmingham, in many cases, or with international links. Again, I only dimly knew then that they were patsies and colluders with the FBI and MI5 and so on. But anyway, and I wouldn't blame the desk officers, by the way, because the MI5 counted opposite numbers I spoke to at desk level were just as in the dark as I was. That's not how it works, But anyway, there was a dialogue coming to the fore of watch out, as it was in the US a bit earlier, like mid-2000s. There were already people at Congress level on the Democrat side saying, I think we should pay more attention to these nationalists and white extremists. But until the time I left in 2009, the overriding thing was still, let's milk this Muslim terrorist squeeze. It's good for growing our budgets.
What do you think? Do you think they'd be watching this show right now?
I don't think many of them would have the inclination, really. I think by this stage they're so in the media vibe, except for the disaffected few who might be watching. Oh, you mean in terms of watching us to find out what's going? No, they're not that bothered.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question actually quite similar to that. Just your opinion. Do you feel that provided obviously that our organisation stays on the right side of the law, which we fully intend to do. You know, if well, of course, that's just what we're doing. Do you think that a grassroots movement like ours would be allowed to exist if it grew past a certain point? Would they allow that to happen, or do you think that they would potentially see that as too much of a rising with too much ideology behind it? Do you think they would try and thwart that in any way?
They will at some point. It's difficult, however, to predict what the trigger point will be. And we were kind of talking about this at the beginning of the discussion as well. It is a bit circumstantial. And both of us have had instances of this in the past, right? Where that you come to the attention of someone at Whitehall, and they think these ghastly plebs, they're actually, organising themselves seriously. We can't have that. So it's difficult to predict, but there does come a sort of a point past which you're not allowed to grow in influence. I think that's quite certain. Yeah,
because I mean, you've seen the same thing happen. I've noticed on your UK column that you actually did a really nice piece on Danny Glass. It's actually the only positive news article that I've ever seen on Danny Glass.
Can you believe it? We could be written off as these disaffected patriarchal types, right? But
yeah,
the sweetest, the lady who wrote it is the sweetest Middle England lady you could imagine, right? She's our relatively new and already much appreciated culture correspondent, effectively, Katie Jo. Yeah, and yeah, she doesn't have any political axe to grind in this. She's never been in nationalist circles, conservative Christian circles, any of the other what the authorities would call feeder pools for our way of thinking and viewing the world. No, she is from a passionate performing family, and she, like a lot of people with their heads screwed on, wanted to home educate her children, and they have a group in Sussex, Hope, to support home educators. And when they started getting hassle from Ofsted, which for those watching from abroad is the rather tyrannical Department of Education inspectors who descend and say, "Show me all your documents," they thought, well, we could do with some real men around, right? So that the real men she got were, and they call themselves the Alpha Men, or now the Alpha Men Assemble. Now they call themselves Alpha Team, and of course Danny Glass was one of those guys, right? And there's where the link through to, well, what would you call it? I don't know whether Danny Glass would call himself a nationalist, or people are a bit sensitive sometimes to the terms.
No, he wouldn't. I've spoken. I mean, I prefer Danny sort of speak his own views, really. But I mean, from what I gather, no. I mean, he's a veteran, so he cares about his people. He cares about his country. He's very anti-racist. He doesn't like that kind of differentiating people by skin color and stuff, which I totally understand and get. But then there is a lot of overlap on the things that we do agree with, and that's kind of where me and Danny have become quite close, and we've been offering our help to the Alpha Men, but also making it very clear that we are the nationalists, and we're offering our help to Danny because we agree with what he's saying, not necessarily the other way around. Does that make sense? And we're okay with that. We're not in or involved with the Alpha Team or Hope in any way to try and encourage people to be nationalists. We just want to help them out because what they're doing is amazing. We're not a big fan of the drag queen story hour. They're not a big fan of it either. I don't think anyone's a big fan of it. So that's something that we can agree on.
Yeah. And if people go to ukcolumn.org and use the search function, the magnifying glass, if you type in drag queen, we have some pieces by Dr. Bruce Scott about that. So actually, Chris, I don't know whether we can do this live and put on screen one of our articles, but you might at least want, if you can't do that, you might at least want to read out a relevant bit. It's still on the homepage of ukcolumn.org. If you want to pull up the article on Danny Glass by Katie Jo Murphy.
Let's have a little look.
Because there's a significant overlap while you're looking for it. The overlap is in both cases a veteran.
Here we
are. He's given the runaround, and much more than that. He's given an absolute horrendous time by a bunch of coppers who turn out, on the face of it, to be patently unlawful in what they're doing, and to know that they've got no legs to stand on. And they like to put out that they're counter-terrorism, but they're probably just a clique within the regular local constabulary, from what we can work out. If you want to scroll down a bit, Chris, there is a comment by a new source of ours, who's actually writing for us now, Charles Mallet, who resigned on principle from Gloucestershire Constabulary last year after a stellar background in the, if I'm not mistaken, the Household Cavalry for part of his career, a distinguished officer, and I think he was a deputy equerry to Her Majesty for a while. Anyway, if you look at where Charles Mallet's comment begins, it's halfway up the article with a black line down the side of it to indicate that it's a quotation, quite a lengthy one. Okay, here we are. Yeah, that's if you want to go up a bit further.
Up a bit, Chris. See that black line on the left-hand side?
A couple more paras. And one of you, here we are, yes. Why don't we ask one of you, to read through this, right? And we can just stop at each paragraph and discuss how comparable this is to the lady you had on last night in Bath.
Being a Brummie, my pronunciation might be a little bit poor on some words, so I'm going to apologise in advance. But it might be a laugh. It might be a laugh for the audience if we get one or two things wrong.
I'll try, but the writing's very small for me.
That's all right. I'll do it. The problem lies with how legislation is drawn up and the way that police use it in a tactical fashion. In particular, the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984, and in brackets PACE. Do you want me to continue?
Please do.
All right. In this instance, it sounds as though Glass's own house was entered and searched using a Section 8 PACE search warrant, and that his mother's house was entered under the Section 17 PACE and searched under Section 18 PACE. Katie Joe said that Glass had not been living in his own house for about 2 weeks. This demonstrates exactly how the system can be manipulated. It would appear that police wanted to search both premises, but based on the intelligence, they did not have grounds to. Therefore, the warrant is applied for on the premises that Glass does own or control his own house, which need not be occupied at the time of executing the warrant. Once Glass is inside his mother's house, police may use Section 17 to enter in order to arrest, and then Section 18 to search.
So, in other words, they knew he was visiting his mum, and they thought, great, we want to cause maximum turmoil, so we'll say, well, we want his house because it's his house, and we'll pretend we don't know he's not there, right? And he's with his mum. Okay, we need to. We've suddenly discovered, honest gov, that he's with his mum. So please give us another warrant under another category to burst in there and frighten her, just because he's there at the time.
Yeah.
Right. So, but to go on there. Read the next bit.
The system of grading intelligence should be the control measure which prevents wrongful searches taking place. But the system is vulnerable here to, in Glass's case, he will be considered as a perfectly legitimate target by police because of his position on the so-called vaccines and on the conduct of the UK government.
Here we come to it, right? If you're a veteran doing something in society, that's enough for the warrant to be waved under the nose of the relevant signatory. And, this guy's a real threat in a way that, well, you'll see in a moment, Charles Mallet says would never be done to an environmental campaigner or an animal campaigner. No, go on.
It is perfectly credible that police were provided with fictitious accounts of weapons held by Glass by members of the public. The grading of such intelligence, if done correctly, could not have resulted in an application to the magistrate, who is, of course, a volunteer for a warrant.
Right, and here we have a lot lower liberty standards than the US, for example, because a magistrate is not only non-professional and an unpaid volunteer as a justice for the peace, but did you know that they're actually a member of the executive branch of government? They're not actually the judiciary. If you go to a magistrate's court, you haven't had English justice, you've not been to an English court, then you've been to a government court, a police court, is what we used to call it, in fact. Anyway, go on.
Okay. With regards to the crossing out of 1 month and replacing it with 3 months for the validity to the warrant. There's one I got wrong there. Sorry. I suspect this was because an old form was being used. A search warrant granted by a magistrate is valid for 3 months from the date of issue. So Glass was not singled out for special treatment. Presumably, with the knowledge that the Glass was spending time at his mother's house, police timed the application for the warrant very particularly.
Okay, and then just one more paragraph, and you'll see how comparable this is to what happened at the ranch near Bath, where the veterans are being held with their PTSD.
Yeah. The episode does illustrate how the application of legislation can be made to be almost entirely subjective. It also demonstrates how badly police are able to treat people who hold the wrong views and yet face no consequences when acting in error. One can scarcely imagine this happening to a climate change activist. For the record, none of the fire alarm searches I attended over the course of the year resulted in the seizure of a fire alarm. However,
That's worth letting sink in, right? He was with the police a year before he couldn't hack it anymore because of their anti-liberty stances and their robotic obedience to what they were told to do. But he was with them a year, and he'd been, in a serious part of the army before that. But he goes with Gloucestershire Police to do firearm searches for a year of his career, and not one of them retrieves a weapon. And go on.
Yeah.
However,
I'm there anyway. However, the supposed offender was always well known to police, and this is simply part of the pointless pattern of disrupting the activities of usually minor criminals. With this in mind, there was no chance that Glass would be asked to attend a voluntary interview.
So, as with, is the lady's name Jo that you spoke to last night?
Yeah, Jo Drayson, yeah.
That's right. As with that lady Jo, she made the perfectly sensible point. Why didn't they, they had our keys. Why did they give us the knock? I think they used a battering ram, didn't they? Well, this is the point, is because not just in the political cases where someone's being punished for wrong thing, but in all cases now where a county constabulary goes and raids people, they regard it as a par for the course way of disrupting tow rags. Yeah. They don't think, how can we most effectively retrieve the information or search the premises?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of glaring similarities between this and the police failings report through the Rotherham cases that's just come out over the past few days, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like this same thing is just going over and over again, isn't it? It doesn't matter what you've done or whatever. Really, they're going after the people that think differently to others, aren't they? It hasn't got anything to do. Look at, like you quite rightly put it. These extinction rebellion guys that are throwing themselves on traffic light, rail lines and things to stop trains. That's ultimately very dangerous. You're putting someone's life in danger there. You could potentially hurt someone. Whereas we're simply having discussions and trying to figure out a better way of living. And we're being treated far worse than those guys, and it's just, and I'm starting to see this over and over and over again, the way that these things are treated. And I think, you know better than me, but from what you've said, these directions seem to be coming from way up above,
yes.
From the sort of bourgeoisie kind of class,
I don't think it's even the question of what corrupts police rank, maybe with a lot of Freemasons in it, is the problem. It seems to be coming from the belly of the Home Office and the Cabinet Office. And if you look further, I can't put my finger right on this, but my strong impression, and the impression of serious investigative journalists like Duncan Campbell going back 40 years, is that ultimately these directions start in committees of the Cabinet Office in which the views of the City of London, the shareholders of major companies, are voiced.
Right.
So it's not a ministerial direction.
One second, just before I forget, I just actually received a message from Danny Glass, and
oh yes,
he actually, this is not live as well, so he actually wished us luck. He said, "Good luck, guys. UK column have stood by me and have done me proud through Katie Joe. So I hope the show goes well." So that's a message I've actually just received. So sorry to interrupt there. I just wanted to.
That was a very worthy interruption. It really is.
Get a little shout out for him, and obviously we just spoke about him, so that was quite funny. I just received that message there. So
I like that coincidence.
Do continue.
Yeah. No, where does it go from here? Can the police be recovered and made fit for their lawful purpose again? I doubt it. But then what do we say? Well, I don't want to plead in any way for anarchy, because it's consistently been found in world history to be worse than tyranny. To be petrified of what might happen if some marauders come down your street is worse than living in the worst tyranny.
Have you seen that what's the village called? Is it Linton? Where basically there's about 750 villagers there, and they're trying to push it like
Linton on Ouse in North Yorkshire. Yes.
And a friend of mine, James Goddard, went and interviewed police. And do you know what? I would stand by them because I was standing by the police if they'd done this all the time. He interviewed them and said, "Look, do you agree with this? A whole village is going to literally be a minority with just a click. It's not even like a sudden thing where you're moving in the family bit by bit. You're literally just going to, okay, you're a majority, bang, minority. What do you think of this?" He was asking him simple questions. He said, "Look, I'm just doing my duty. I'm on duty. I'm not going to be political." And you know what? I would take that stance. But then you've got this LGBT month when they're all out there, being political. So that's where I just don't buy their nonsense. And, something really needs to be done about this. But politics should be staying out of all sporting events
Do you mind me asking you to put another article on screen, because that will illustrate the point very well. If you want to go to the search function on the top right of ukcolumn.org homepage and type in the word stormtrooper, and you will find, I think it's called An Interview with a Stormtrooper by David Scott.
It says sorry, but nothing matched your search. Is it one word, is it?
Yeah.
Sorry, I am actually in a group called Stormtrooper, but it's 2 words. Just give me a minute because it's just loading. It's just a search bar at the moment. I'll show you one second.
That's all right. Sometimes it hangs a bit. This is David Scott, who's our Scottish correspondent. There we are. Yes, that I'm afraid happens occasionally with our software. You might want to use a search engine of your choice to search for the words Stormtrooper and ukcolumn.org, and that will bring it up more reliably.
So if I just go onto Google and type
I couldn't possibly recommend one search engine over others, but the annoying thing is that the ones I don't like to name tend to be the ones that are most efficient.
Like if you just go to share screen, then I share it. If you want to do that, it's up to you. You see share at the bottom there.
Yes, I can.
Press share screen. If you can.
Let me just see if I can bring it up then before you.
I actually wrote David Scott in my notes as a very well written man. He's a wordsmith.
He is. Yes, he's really got the knack.
He hasn't he? Yeah, I mean it's like reading poetry, that man.
I would say that's a good way to describe it. Okay, so let me put that in another tab, and what I need to do, I think, is, we'll get there. Go back to the StreamYard and start sharing the screen.
Yeah, you can share it and then I can put it on.
And now, of course, I have to go to my Mac preferences. And yeah.
Well, hey guys, we just did a show yesterday with, or the day before, whenever this goes actually, with the PTSD camp. Jo Jason, she needs your support as much as possible. She's saving veterans' lives, helping change lives as well. And she does loads of events. She's got events on this weekend. So if anyone who didn't catch that show, please go and check that out. It is the previous show to this one. So please go and support her. I think she needs all the help she can possibly can get. Alex, would you be up for talking to her on an occasion? If I can
yes, of course. I didn't quite hear that, I'm afraid, because I was getting annoyed by error messages. But just repeat that.
In the show, just as, so we're not sitting here in silence while you're sorting yourself out. But it'd be nice to see you two have a conversation. I'm just trying to get as much publicity as I can. To be honest,
who is this? Sorry.
Jo Jason, the PTSD camp leader.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very much open for that. I've been talking to Trooper Craig Bullman as well. And I feel a bit guilty that I haven't been able to do more with following his leads, because he's very tied in to assisting veterans in need. So I intend to do more. So whether it's on your platform or ours, I definitely do want to talk to Joe. I'm afraid the thing that was annoying me is I would have to close my browser and therefore lose this stream in order to share.
Find it. Stormtrooper, UK column, yeah? Yeah. Well, we're professional, aren't we, guys?
Nobody could have avoided this kind of thing. There'll be somebody at home saying, for goodness sake, why aren't they more professional? But you should try it yourself, and then you'll find what's involved.
Absolutely. Is this it, yeah?
This is the one. Okay.
Right, do I need to go for the whole thing, or?
Well, just the bit where they say, I'm just doing my job. which is...
Oh, so it's a whole transcript.
Yeah, I mean, just the length of the transcript on screen is worth seeing. This is David talking to Police Scotland officers in Edinburgh. Yeah, and what's going on here? Yeah.
I can read one, you can read one. You've got the screen in front of you, haven't you, as well?
All right.
I can just
Joe,
about
with
manage
or
if you
without
want.
the Scottish accent, Joe, why don't you become David Scott?
Okay,
bear in mind that there's more than one police officer taking part in the PS, Police Sunny for Police Scotland, but one's a man and one's a woman. But okay, all the police will be Chris Mitchell. Okay.
Is that PS1? Yeah, PS1 name. Yeah. Hello. I'm the old Bill. I'm joking. I'm going to introduce myself as a police liaison officer. The purpose, DS.
Excuse me, sir. I'm hearing impaired, and I find masks very difficult.
I'm not going to remove my mask.
Well, I'm sorry.
I can raise my voice, and I believe that you can hear me from there.
I can hear you, but I do lip read a bit as well. But I'm hearing impaired, so it does make it more difficult for me to understand what you're saying.
Okay, you can skip the next one. This is a great rigmarole of him saying, I'm putting on my mask, I'm taking off my mask, I'm moving closer to you, I'm shouting at you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, okay.
So the purpose of me being here today is a police liaison officer, and I'm here to inform you that any gathering today, any assembly of people, and I assume I may be wrong here, but I'm going to ask you, what's your intention? Why are you here today?
I'm sorry, sir. I don't want to have a conversation with you.
I said, why are you here?
I don't wish to have a conversation with you, very politely.
You don't wish to have a conversation. Well, I inform you just to give you information that may be necessary or useful for you to make a decision as to your intention from this point onwards, that any gathering of any kind, any assembly of people in terms of protest or whatever, it's not allowed at the moment because we are currently, and I'm sure you are aware, in tier 4, a lockdown situation. That means that people are not allowed to assemble. The reason being that it's being seen by experts to be dangerous to public health. Anybody that is in contravention of that.
Unless you BLM. I'm sorry, sir. I'm here to be a human being. You've come across and you're starting to threaten me with action. This is not right, sir.
I haven't finished my sentence. I've not threatened you with anything.
Well, I think that's the way it's going, and we are all human beings, sir. We are all equal, and go up a bit, mate. No worries. We're all equal in common law jurisdiction. It's a beautiful day. We're outside. You must realise the threat that you're claiming to change all of our rights. All of our rights is tiny. Sorry, this writing is so small, guys. I'm really struggling. Do you know, sir?
You can open this
no, just bear with me one moment.
All right, you can open it up on your own page and read it like that if that's better.
I'll take over and be David. Okay, you go on, Chris.
I haven't said that at all because you haven't let me finish. I have not. I will repeat, I have not finished.
You finish.
So my advice was that anybody assembling in order to protest today in a group is in contravention of the current restrictions linked to the coronavirus, okay, under the Health Protection Coronavirus Scotland Act of 2020, and therefore...
But these are unlawful.
I am giving you advice that if you were here, and I'm just saying, if you were here in that intention, you are liable. You will be given a fixed penalty notice.
You're now threatening me, sir. This is threatening.
I'm not threatening you. I'm giving you advice.
Oh, look, it's a beautiful day. It's sunny.
I don't dispute that. I don't dispute you being a human being. I am giving you advice so that you can decide.
Now, I'm going to give you some advice, sir, because we're all equal in a common law jurisdiction. Do you believe that?
Carry on.
Do you believe that we are all equal in a common law jurisdiction?
I don't know what your point is, sir. I'm allowing you to finish your point.
I'm trying to establish a point where we can have...
Because you already asked me whether I believe you to be a human being. There's no doubt about that at all, or doubt at all about that. How are you going to finish your point?
It's a very simple question, sir. Do you believe we are all equal in a common law jurisdiction?
I'm not going to get into a debate at all whatsoever. I have told you in relation to coronavirus health protection.
Well, okay, if you're not going to debate, I will tell you something.
No, I am now going to withdraw because I find it intimidating. Yeah, you're intimidating. That you're actually going to try and negotiate with me about something.
I don't wish to negotiate with you about anything, sir. I don't wish to enter into any contract with you. I don't wish to negotiate.
Can I ask you another question?
I don't want to answer your question.
I'm asking you a reasonable question. Where did you travel from?
I'm not going to answer your question.
Right, I'm going to withdraw now. I have taught you. I've given you information about coronavirus.
And now you're refusing to listen to my points. You say that you're not going to debate.
I think, sir, that you're trying to provoke a reaction.
I'm not going to provoke a reaction. The last thing I want is to provoke a reaction. Look, you've got weapons and lots of people. Why would I want to provoke a reaction? I'm a peaceful man. I'm here peacefully, law-abiding. Woman.
I think my colleague has already advised you.
I understand your position, but here's the problem. There is a thing called the law. You're meant to be part of an organization to uphold the law, and yet here people are wanting to behave lawfully, and then you're coming and threatening them. This is not right. You shouldn't be asked to do this. Let me finish, sir. No, you keep interrupting me. Please let me finish. We're equal in a common law jurisdiction. I listened to you. You should listen to me. That's how we get along. Right. We're in a situation where the state is telling us our rights no longer exist, and they're saying coronavirus. But if you've looked at the figures, sir, you will know that the all-cause mortality in 2020 was normal.
And that's not for us to discuss with you.
But that's for the people to decide. That's for the people to be able to have an opinion on.
There's not the right to assemble is a qualified right, and that has been suspended because of health concerns with medical science and medical experts.
Some medical science, some medical experts.
You can dispute that. You can dispute that as much as you like. Freedom of expression has not been suspended, so you could express yourself online.
Ha 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 ha.
What has been decided is that to actually gather in numbers, to assemble, and in terms of a protest, a demonstration is dangerous to public health. Now, somebody else has decided that, and I'm the agent of.
No, it's not.
Well, you can dispute that, and you can do that online, but in a group to do that has been deemed.
Well, this is the thing, because this is an important point.
So my purpose today is to inform you that the police policy on that would be to give you a fixed penalty notice if you disregard that.
But no, this is threatening.
And whether you decide that is you've got two VATs there, is that right? And you decide
that information
is threatening.
You are now threatening me.
It's not my purpose to do that. I'm here to inform you.
No, you're not.
Okay, so I've given you the information. Whether you decide that information is threatening or not, it's up to you.
Well, you see, this is what brings the police into disrepute. It destroys your relationship with the public.
That's your opinion, but I can't alter that. I cannot alter that.
But you police by consent. Do you believe that, woman?
Yes.
Do you believe that you're a citizen in uniform, man?
It would be naive to.
Do you believe that we're all equal in a common law jurisdiction? That you're only engaged, woman?
Oh, I've got to go about this woman. There's a few women now coming up. What you need to understand, sir, is that there's other people that have a completely polar opinion to yourself, and you need to respect that. We need to respect that.
But I do. I'm not trying to fine anybody.
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to take it serious. In the parameters of the law.
No, a statute. You're working against the law. The law says, man.
Inaudible comment about statute and law. I know that the majority of people believe that. The instruction from our chief constable.
I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying.
Well, I'll speak for you. We're working within the current parameters of air quotes the law.
Statute, regulations.
From the chief constable and from the government. That's all we can work with.
Yes.
My colleague has explained very clearly what the steps are. And if you are here together to assemble, that is a qualified right that's covered by legislation.
A qualified right?
Where there is a public health issue.
There is no public health issue.
In your opinion?
No, in the statistics given by your government.
Right, so we're going to withdraw. You obviously don't want to talk to us. You just want to get.
I was sitting there minding my own business.
Well, we're aware that there's currently this anti-lockdown gathering meant to be. I think I'm sounding American now, by the way. I think I'm going off track a little bit here. Meant to
Sounding a
have
bit
been
like a drag queen,
Agree.
organised and meant to have a bit of talking place. And that's why we came across to engage with you. Okay, that's the end of it. You've been informed.
That's the end of it. That's not the end of it.
It might not be the end of it, but this is the end of our conversation because you're not listening to me.
No, you're not listening to me.
Sounds
I
like
heard what you
my old
said.
relationship. This does. I just never listen to her. But
I heard what you said, and I'm saying that the basis of our rights has been removed by the state, and the state points to a health risk, but the state's own statistics say there's no health risk, so that's a lie.
and that's for me. And that's for me too.
No, you keep interrupting me. I listened to you. Just listen. It's polite. It's one human being to another. We're all equal in a common law jurisdiction.
Carry on, but you're trying to get me to agree with your opinion, which I cannot do. I cannot commit to that.
I can see now why you're taking an American train twang. Well,
I'm so
it would be your
sorry.
job.
I'm having fun. I'm having a bit of
It
fun.
would be your job.
Very
If
honest.
you agree with me, they'll sack you. That's the position.
I've lost it. Oh, that's the position. You're debating something that we're not free to debate, and we're not actually.
You're not free to debate it because of your job.
You're talking about medical science,
I'm talking about government statistics.
but we're not qualified.
But it's numbers.
Well, it's not. It's not. We'll not ever give an opinion on that. That's not our role today. Our role today is to tell you about the police on assembly.
That would be policy, probably the inaudible word. But I heard you. You keep repeating yourself.
Sorry. You're trying to derail this, and we've been very clear to you.
No, I'm simply saying that we're equal in a common law jurisdiction and that you've spoken to me.
I am being very clear to you that you are not to assemble here in terms of a protest or demonstration, and to do so is a breach of the Coronavirus Act.
You've come over and spoken to me. You've engaged with me. No, you keep repeating yourself, sir. When you come over to speak to me as a human being.
There are other officers here who may want to engage with you.
Of course, he's saying, he's the blue-jacketed liaison officer, so he's saying in a moment you'll get nicked by the regular cops. I'm just trying to spin you along. David replies, as a human being.
Look, I've said all I need to say.
As a human being, you came over and talked to me, and now you're refusing to listen.
I've explained why we came over to talk to you.
But you're refusing to listen. Act as a human being, as one person to another. You have a view. I'm stating my view. This man here won't allow me to state my view. He keeps talking over the top of me. Why?
You can state your opinion. That is your human right to state your view.
Of course, it's my human right to state my view.
However, you are not allowed to state your view in this forum today.
Why?
Because freedom of assembly is a qualified right.
And what does that mean? Please explain to me what that means.
It means that legislation can be put in place to restrict that right.
Is there any limit on that legislation? Could the government do anything it wants?
Within the parameters of what it decides.
With a kind of... So you're telling me today the government's power is absolute?
No, you keep putting words in my mouth.
No, that's what you said. It can do anything.
Listen, you're trying to put words in my mouth. I'm trying to explain it in simple terms. The legislation in place.
If you let me speak, I'll explain my point.
Going to explain that legislation to you. If you do that, then you may be liable to arrest. Okay?
I see you've now escalated it. You're now saying you'll abduct me.
No, we didn't say abduct.
No, that was the bloke.
Oh, no. All right. So, no, we didn't say abduct. I just got used to it. But, yeah.
Wrongful arrest is abduction. See how you've escalated it now?
We're just going around in circles here.
I'm trying to speak to you as a human being, and you won't listen.
My colleagues are going to speak to you now.
No, I don't want to have any more to do with this.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Third police officer.
You're going to stay with us now, okay?
No, I'm not. I'm going to go away.
And that, I don't know if you want to read the rest. I need a break. My voice is gone.
Well, Joe, you've been listening to that. So what do you reckon?
Joe, go on.
You're muted.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry, mate. Well done, lads. Chris, I didn't have you down as a thespian, but that was very good.
No, I thought that was worth doing because it demonstrates the ludicrous situation, as with the policeman in Linton on Ouse that you were talking about, Joe.
Yeah.
I am just doing what I am told. It's been decided to crush you. I do not have an opinion.
Yeah, this what it is. Joe, you need to take a few minutes. I need to get my.
I need to what? Sorry.
You take over for a couple of minutes. I just need to get my voice back after doing that.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, this all kind of. I started looking into this stuff about 15 years ago, with all the common law stuff, and and sort of break it. I think David Icke did a book on it, Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, The Lion Sleeps No More. It's quite a big book when I was coming through this kind of early, sort of transfer. And, that was really interesting. We really got into that. But it's one of those things, isn't it, where once you've committed to that needs to be the way that you live your life then,
yes.
really, for you can't really be a part of the system anymore once you've sort of made that leap, which is very difficult for a lot of people. But I do like the rhetoric, the way that the conversation is going down, because you're pulling apart their argument, aren't you? And you're diffusing the police, essentially. You've put them in a position where they can't do anything,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, in 5 years' time, I doubt we'll be having the same conversation. I think they'll very much be able to do something about it.
Well, I just wonder. So, how long have you been streaming anyway? How many streams have you done?
I've streamed for about, probably about 3-4 years.
Really?
Yeah. So we had a good popular show. I was basically with Mark Kletzmer and Patriotic Alternative. I'm not going to get into that. Good luck to them. And I had a very popular show within that movement. Things happened. I'm no longer with them. Same with Joe. Don't wish to go into it, obviously. Now we have the INN, so we're just we're rebuilding again, and we're doing really well, growing, nicely. I wouldn't say like thousands and thousands, but good amount of numbers. Got 3 or 4 events coming up with the INN. Obviously, we're going to be supporting other demonstrations. We have one at the end of August bank holiday. That is against Stop Paedophilia. And that's going to have speeches there from people that are survivors from grooming and sexually been assaulted, sadly, when they were kids. So should be a good event. And obviously, if you're in the Manchester area, or if you want to drive there, obviously I'm going to be traveling from Norfolk to go and support the guys. And that's what a lot of the INN is about. We want to support demonstrations, independents running elections, whether you agree with if there's a political solution or not, but that there are people that believe there is a political solution. So we will go on the streets and campaign with them and get them all the support we can. And I think that's what's good about the INM, where we want to help, and we still support and do things for PA. I'm not sure they would want that themselves. And like, I have a few things, obviously, I think about them, but ultimately it's about our people, building our communities, and working to similar goals, as Joe alluded to earlier with the Alpha team. They don't agree with us on everything, but we do have common goals. And, I think that's why we fail a lot, because it's just, oh, you don't believe in this one thing that I do. Well, then that means
purity spiraling, they call it. And with that, Chris gets frozen.
Oh, he has frozen, hasn't he?
He has. The connection to Norfolk has failed. He's been a very naughty boy, and he has had his internet privileges revoked by the permanent committee on.
It's been turned off at the router.
Yeah, I expect he'll be rebooting in a moment. Where do you live, by the way, Joe?
I'm in Worcestershire.
Oh, very pleasant county.
It's nice. Yeah, it's very, very rural. Very up until a few years ago, it was still very. It probably hasn't changed much in the past sort of 400 years, really, in a lot of ways. But yeah, I love it. I love my town, love the people. It's kind of a lot of the reason why I'm here doing what I'm doing.
Excellent.
And, I've got kids, as I said before, so I've kind of got meat in the game, and the way that things are going with the children and things, it's Yeah, it's just all cause to do this, isn't it? So unfortunately, no one else was kind of putting their heads above the parapet, as it were. So,
This is
so
the
it's
thing,
good.
isn't it? You know, why are there so few who are actually prepared to put their face to their name?
I genuinely don't know. I genuinely don't know. And I mean, I wasn't doxxed or anything. You know, it wasn't out of my hands. I voluntarily sort of put my face out there as a show of clarity and honour, really, and to try and encourage others to do the same. You know, because it's not illegal yet. You know, and we need to stand by this, and we need to get this going now, really. I've currently, at the moment, this might be something that you might be able to sort of speak a little bit upon, actually. I don't know if you remember, but I think it's last year, maybe 2 years ago, there was a judge ruled that belief in English nationalism is a protected characteristic in landmark decision.
I'd heard about this, yes. Where was that court again?
That was in Manchester that this happened.
Yeah.
Is that nationalism or English nationalism, should I say, is a protected characteristic in a landmark decision at Tribunal of English Democrats campaigner who was sacked by the NHS. So essentially, what my sort of idea at the moment is with this is, and I know that a lot of legal cases, kind of the outcome of them is based on previous court cases that have come before, and they can be used as references with the new court case. And I'm essentially going to try and get together as many of these cases together as possible, and reference them in an almost kind of warning, you know, in the same way that the LGBT are protected, you know, the Muslims are protected, anybody's protected that's a person of color or an ethnic minority, you know, that we're seeking that same kind of protection.
Did you know that religion or belief, which includes philosophical belief, is also, as per the European Convention on Human Rights, the father of the Human Rights Act 1998, that's also a protected characteristic. Now, of course, today the draft British Bill of Rights, so-called, has been brought out, a deliberate misnomer because we already have one since 1689. But if I haven't read the text yet, but I would be astonished if religion and belief is not a protected characteristic in the replacement of the 1998 Human Rights Act, which, as I say, is the transposition into English law of the ECHR. Right, so that's actually been mentioned by David Scott in yet another UK column article called "The Battle of Mearns Academy," which is easily found as well. That's MEARNS, Mearns Academy, where we have a transcript of a stealthily recorded exchange between a Scottish Highers, the equivalent of A-levels pupil, and his mentor just before he gets expelled from school for having said that there are only two genders. Right, so there are many ways in which you can use legislation back against the state, because it was fairly noble-minded legislators and diplomats that brought the ECHR into being in the post-war period, largely because they wanted to export English liberty to more benighted lands on the continent. And so that's why the ECHR has these very broad, generous definitions of the language of protected characteristic is very Harriet Harman era. Yeah, so it's not something that is used as a phrase, but it's there in the ECHR.
Which makes it legitimate.
Yeah, if you can say you have a sincere philosophical commitment to English nationalism, that's another road to protect yourself, I would say. Brilliant.
That would be something definitely to talk about and maybe explore a little bit for all of us for these coming years, you know, because as I said to you, I am a bit worried that, you know, we are sort of doing something that's correct and it's not funded by anyone. And I think that will probably worry all of the wrong people. And, you know, and I'll say, I don't really want to go to prison, to be honest with you, buddy. It's not something that it's not on my list of things to do. You know, I would very much like to stay out of jail and raise my kids, you know, and I want to try and do that for as long as possible. I mean, I do appreciate that this comes with certain risks and, you know, we will get a certain backlash and whatever, but you know, is again, you know, someone has to pioneer these things. You know, our guys.
Anyone who's listening who thinks like this, Joe, they should bear in mind that the last defence, and earlier in the stream I said that juries are no good these days often because they're drawn from a supine British population. But the last defence, and it was used by Clive Ponting successfully, in defending himself against charges of breaking the Official Secrets Act because of documents he leaked about the sinking of the Belgrano in the Falklands War. The last defense is to say to the jury, I appeal up to you to nullify this conviction. You have the power to say I'm not guilty because this law is unjust in this case. Right? And you'll get the judge screaming at you as soon as you say it. And I direct you not to take any note of him. I direct you to find him guilty, which is perfectly unlawful, but many judges do it now. But you just stand your ground. You might, on the day, get a jury that's actually English in a meaningful sense and will actually stand up to the judge. This is how William Penn, the founder of the Quakers, a very famous time of trial just around the time of the Glorious Revolution, avoided a jail sentence because the judge in that case ordered the jury to be locked up on short rations of bread and water until they gave them the correct verdict of guilty. But they said, no, we will not. We're here as a jury. And we find the guy not guilty because all he's done is pamphleteer.
There was that right-wing political figure, weren't there? Stephen Thomas, and the judge ruled that belief in English nationalism is a protected characteristic in a
that's the Manchester case that Joe was talking about when you just had your blip in the signal.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for reminding us who the judge is, yeah.
Sorry, apologies, I got cut out there. Just weird that was. It just said Sky Broadband.
No, well done for picking up on that case, Crikey. You weren't even here, and you still managed to veer back on subject.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't hear nothing.
At work there.
I was a good flow as well. I don't know how much you heard of my little epic little rant about how long I've been doing this, but it don't matter. We don't need to go into it. But before we obviously we'll move on. Before we let you go, I'm sure you're a busy man. Just a couple of quick questions. I mean, yeah. First of all, what made you move to Netherlands? What did you leave the great?
True love. Well, I was disenchanted and disaffected with GCHQ, but I wasn't the type to say, I resign, I'm going to do something else in life. So I probably would have been making a rod for my own back indefinitely if I hadn't met a wonderful Dutch woman. So she came over.
Was a woman. So it definitely wasn't the red light district then, no.
Oh no, none of that. I lived at the other end, the socially other end of the country in the Bible Belt. So
Brilliant.
No, she came over to the Cotswolds to improve her English.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Things grew from there.
Fantastic.
I still need to improve my English. I need to get this brumming out. Well, can Christianity help galvanize the British people, or do you believe that Christians can still? Two separate questions again. Or do you believe that Christians can still unite with non-Christians for the sake of our people?
Yes, absolutely. Look, I've spent the afternoon in the grottiest neighbourhood in the country, in the middle of The Hague, talking to a sheikh, the sheikh whose interview is still on the front page of gaycolumn.org, because he is like like a lot of leaders of Islam and of Asian religions as well, Eastern Asian religions who you talk to, the Dalai Lama comes to mind. He's not the only one. He says, well, of course the English have got a right to their own country.
Yeah.
In fact, Sheikh Imran Hussein is so much of an ally of ours, and I've seen him do it this afternoon, talking to a Pakistani in The Hague. As soon as he gets a devotee coming up, he says, where are you from? Where's your father from? Where's your mother from? Right, go back there. Because he sees that the West is about to suffer inevitable and irrevocable collapse, as many of us believe too. Yeah, so of course we can make common cause. Does Christianity endorse nationalism? This is something you can tie yourself in knots about. Look, I was mentored in my GCHQ career by the number 2 at GCHQ, one of the board of directors.
Yeah,
and I crossed the Rubicon with him after I left GCHQ when I posted on Facebook, without any commentary, actually, just a photograph of Identity Ireland slinging a banner over the M50, the Dublin motorway ring road, with just the words Identity Ireland, I think, or Save Ireland. And that was enough. He said, I'm not having anything to do with you ever again. I subsequently discovered that I knew he was a Christian, but subsequently discovered that he was in some network of Cheltenham LGBT-friendly churches and all this kind of stuff. But that was indicative of a whole generation of culturally Christian, or in his case, committed Christian, to give him his due, liberal, but committed Christians who thought, well, the ultimate value, British value or public service value for which we're in GCHQ is to keep everyone together and keep everyone in the same boat. When he saw me getting involved in what he called right-wing commentary, I said, do you have any advice for me? And he said, just try to keep everyone together. Don't create any division. That was the sum total of his advice.
What about the? I mean, I don't know what it's like there, but you must have known it over in England. There does seem to be a bit of a disconnect between the middle class English person and the working class.
There always has been. The English have always had this particular class problem, right? And I was actually dreaming last night about a very dear lady, because she's just died and been buried. So you often dream about people then. A lady who was nearly 95 and who was a very dear friend of my parents in their Liverpool church back in the day. And she and her and that whole church congregation, where my parents were happy members in the 70s, embodies for me how you bring the working class and the middle class together. And I have an interview with my father, and the third part's coming up shortly, on literacy, which is also on ukcolumn.org, which covers this theme. Because if you want to know how the working class and the middle class get on, and he's talking about the Scottish experience, which is frankly more erudite than the English, but the success of it is you need a thinking working class and a thinking middle class, not an underclass and a boozy bourgeoisie. Right, and also they need to be tied together by a proper aristocratic thread. Yeah, we need a few lords and nobles directing us, and then the classes will work together. And why do I mention Norris Green Baptist Church in Liverpool in the 70s? Because it was everything there, from the dockers. This is before the Toxteth riots of 81. So it was still, as with Rotterdam at the time as well, happy people of all ethnicities living together and working on the docks. They were right up to, quite well-off people going and worshipping in the same church. And the secret of it is they were actually studying together. They were forming a worldview together. They weren't just watching the Gogglebox and learning stereotypes about each other.
By the way, I'm going to have to send you my bank details. With the amount of promotion you've done on this show, you have to pay me some shekels. I'm only joking. I know.
I know. It's a demonstration that we have a lot of hot button issues that we share with you.
No, I know. I'm only joking.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on there. I really do. And I mean, even when we get the occasional sort of, lefty that comes onto Telegram and stuff and whatever, and I mean, I don't obviously see eye to eye with a lot of their opinions and things, but I do like to debate these people, and I do like to speak about it, and at least just try and sort of get a bit of a grasp of where they're coming from, because it's always good to refine your arguments apart from anything, isn't it? And sort of keep yourself sharp, as it were. But yeah, I think there's definite benefit in that, and there isn't going to be one class of people that are going to rise up and make everything the way that they want it. There does need to be some common ground there, where everyone can exist in a reasonable state. I do truly believe this, and I think everyone needs to be incorporated into these ideas. I just feel that this liberal democracy has sort of swung so far the one way. It really needs to come back quite hard, but I'm just hoping that when it does come back hard, I hope that we can be sort of a little bit more tolerant of them than they've been of us. Does that make sense? And then
be bigger than them. Yes. Yeah. Because there's been, I know there's studies for everything these days. You can prove anything that the people funding the study want to prove. But one that sticks in my mind is, I think it was a US study. It was investigating how many cardinal virtues dominated the thinking of classic left-wing and classic right-wing people in contemporary America. And what was found was that the leftists were dominated by 3 cardinal virtues. Fairness, I think, was one of them. And the interesting thing is the right wing, or I think the American nomenclature would have been conservative people, had the same 3 cardinal virtues plus 3 others. So they could find common ground with the lefties on 3 points. But they also found that there were other things which were alien or inimical to the lefty point of view, one of which was, I think, was a sense of duty.
Yeah,
another was a sense
we
of
all
decency.
think we're here for the right reasons. We all think we're doing the right thing. It's
so our worldview, if you want to call us right wingers, our view is richer and subsumes or contains the whole of the modern shrunken left wing view. But if you talk about proper old left men like Tony Benn, I would say that they had all 6 of those virtues in spades, to the point that he had more cojones than anyone in the right wing I can think of in telling the Crown and the Church of England and everyone else that they were not acting on their oath and were breaching common law. He had plenty of insight there. But of course, he would probably have been drummed out of the modern Labour Party. Yeah,
I mean, you could even expand that into sort of more modern day terms and things that we've got going on socially right now. This whole division's been sort of fight between the Muslim communities, the white communities, the indigenous people. And I just think it's a little bit crazy that we all hate this drag queen story hour thing being in schools. The Islamists or should I say the Muslims are protesting about it. We're protesting about it. What I don't see that we can't do is just work together on certain subjects where we just say, look, socially, all of us don't agree with this, so can we all just agree to just get that gone first, and then we'll continue.
In the post literature, we and conservative Jews and conservative Muslims who have all turned up at Birmingham and again also in East London at these primary schools, we are described as co-belligerents. We're fighting the same war as them.
And that's the only way we get stuff done. It really is. It's the only way we get stuff done. And I mean, that's what the INN hopes to do. We don't want to bend too much because we do still have our principles, and there are things that, we'll never sort of get over, and that's absolutely fine. And, there's other beliefs on other sides that, we will never sort of lean into. But I mean, if we want to start seeing some change, we have to collectivize on these issues and sort of, make it well known that those people who keep giving these orders down, that, that's not what the people want. And, it's not the way that the window is shifting at the moment. Is my sorts of feelings on it. Sorry, Chris, I'm talking a lot here, buddy.
Alex, we'll cut the show shortly. We'll get some final thoughts and anything you want to plug. But after everything we've told you about the INN, what's your overall thoughts of it? And also, have you got any advice for us?
I would say the advice is I don't know how many chaps you have at the core of the network, but never scrimp on the thinking time. Right. Brian, Mike, David, and I have spent many, many hours arguing the toss about what we really believe on the fine points. And, it could descend, if you're not careful, into a kind of intellectual onanism, but it isn't, or ego stroking, but it really is necessary. We are constantly pulling each other up in a very gentlemanly way and saying, actually, old chap, there's half an error. You've made 5 good steps and 1 half error in your reasoning, and that's fatal if we don't correct that in our definition of what we mean by this term or what our goal is. And you cannot, if you don't do that regularly, you cannot present a united front to your own supporters and helpers, let alone to the outside world.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that we've quite got that because I'll do a video and I'll go to these guys. I'm like, honest thoughts, and there has been one time, to be fair, where the main guy Richie said, not going to lie, it was absolutely rubbish. It was rubbish. I'm telling you this because I love you. You're my pal. And do you know what? I'm thinking, I don't care. Like, I thank you for telling me, because I'd rather know that your opinion, a mate of mine that can tell me the truth, rather than putting it out and then I would have got slated by like a wider audience. And thinking, you know what? I respect the honesty rather than, because you will get some people suck up to you. And I thought, well,
have you heard of the very manly American Christian writer Vox Dei, as in D-A-Y, because the saying is Vox Dei, the voice of God, spelled D-E-I. So he puns on that and calls himself Vox Dei with a D-A-Y. And he's, I think, in Arizona. And he's got a very, very popular blog and written a couple of books as well. He's regarded as one of probably the most important alt-right Christian commentator, to put him in a box, or I'll give him a label. And he's written a couple of books on SJWs. And the first one's called SJWs Always Lie. And I think the second book is called SJWs Always Double Down, or something like that. But both books describe him having fun. Oh, this is my other piece of advice. Have fun waging the war. Enjoy your battles. And I think Vox Dei says that in his books, because when it was in the context of sci-fi writing in America, he was trying to wrest that away from the ultra liberals and make it actual fun writing again. And in the course of doing that, he discovered that the claims that the SJWs would attack him with were always falsified, the life stories and the I was offended and all that. And he would find that they were always terrorized. It reminds me of the sort of the hierarchy of demons in a way, which they're not unrelated to. They're always terrorizing each other, and they're petrified of losing face within their own movement. They're always suspecting each other of having one up on each other, or trying to get one over it on each other. So be the antithesis of that. Enjoy building each other up and enjoy each other's successes.
Yeah, well
and
said.
The energy that exudes is just terrifying to the opposition.
Well said. Good point. So I think we've got a nice little family unit there, haven't we, Joe, at the moment? Quite honest with each other. We have our jokes, I don't think we've not really had any major fallout. I think we had a little disagreement earlier, but it wasn't just over 1 or 2 things. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? But it wasn't.
Yeah, but it's all constructive though. That's the thing. It really is. You find when you take this ego ego trip out of it. You know, you're not, like you say, you're not trying to get someone who's trying to get one up on someone else. You know, it's genuine. We're all here for the same reason. So,
Yeah.
you know, why wouldn't we want it to be better or the best that it can be?
I also describe, this will be my last thought, right? I also describe it as a funnel, the recruitment funnel to get serious chaps, particularly if you want them to actually have responsibility and leadership in time. The wide rim, the mouth of the funnel is, are there any brave guys around? Courage is in fairly plentiful supply compared with the other qualifications that are needed for this kind of work, right? As you move towards the narrowing of the funnel, you get the question of, is the guy competent? Does he actually know some stuff from his life experience and or from study? Okay, and qualifications. Then you get to the choke point, the narrow base of the funnel, and that is, has the guy got a stable character? And that's what's in painfully short supply. You can have brilliantly gifted and bold men and women as well, but I believe in male leadership by default, certainly for this kind of public role for obvious reasons. And if you don't be swayed, don't be wowed by somebody who is brilliantly well qualified and has been, a proven ability to defy authorities when necessary. Because if he doesn't have a stable character and a good relationship with the missus and the other things on the usual list that would, be run through by any small business before you give someone a real, position of responsibility, then he could easily blow up at an untoward moment and start pointing the finger at the rest of you.
Yeah, well, good comments.
Yeah,
good comments.
Very good point. Yeah.
Right. Okay, well, we'll end it there. We'll go to some final thoughts. I'll start. I just think it's been an absolutely brilliant show. My highlight was probably acting like an American chick police officer. I think the audience is going to love that. It's going to get clipped. Of course, it's going to get clipped. It was a great show, honestly. I learned so much from you, mate, and it's been an absolute pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Hopefully we can do another part. Obviously, when we get some activism going on, we've got some great plans. We can get you on again, get your thoughts on some of our activism, and obviously go through some more your articles. Just try and get a Brummie police officer next time. So quite easy to read the transcripts then. But no, jokes aside, it's been absolutely fantastic. I think a part 2 is necessary because I can just talk to you all day. To be honest, I think you just got wealth of knowledge and yeah, just thank you so much for coming on. It really means a lot. So yeah, I'll hand the dance floor to Anglo Joe.
Thanks, buddy. Well, I kind of have this bit of a virtue where when I got into this, I decided that I wanted to surround myself with men stronger than me so that I could encourage myself to be stronger. And also surround myself with men that are more intelligent than me, so that I can attempt to be a little bit smarter. And I feel like I've really done it on this one, Alex. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and what an insight. Maybe one day you'll be writing an article about the INN. You never know. Perhaps maybe that would be really cool. But yeah, I've genuinely and the conversation before the stream as well, it's just been absolutely fantastic. What a brilliant insight, and you're a really nice guy to talk to as well. I feel like this has flowed really well, which is quite rare with these things. Sometimes they can be a little bit blocky, but I've really enjoyed it. It's been really nice. It's been really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I get a very good feeling about you guys, and I'm sure you'll go places.
Thank you, Alex. Please put your final thoughts. Anything you want to plug, mate. Just say anything you want.
Well, it's really rolling along the bottom of the screen. ukcolumn.org. We could do with subscriptions, £3 a month. It's on the Join Now red button on the homepage. A lot of people watch and read for free, but unlike even some of the free media, and I mean the good, uncorrupt free media, we don't even take advertising. We're entirely dependent on subscriptions by definition, by choice, so as to be completely free of any threats or manipulation. Right. So don't just assume that I'll watch for free and other people will pay, because less work can be done, fewer articles and videos can be commissioned if you don't pay. But that's the same of everyone you value in the independent media. Donate to them.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's ukcolumn.org, and the Telegram channel is Eastern Approaches, or EASTAPP on Telegram.
I will make it life a little bit easier for you listeners. I will leave all the links to ourselves and Alex channels in the description. So please go and find the links there, and it should take you straight to the Telegram app or his website or our Telegram apps. Again, it's been an absolute pleasure. I am going to end it for any new listeners watching. So I'm going to end it on our INM promo. We just made it the other day, so I hope you'll enjoy it. I know you watched it, Alex. What did you think of the promo? Let's get your opinions.
Oh, I liked it. It's got a nice move to it, and it's got a nice flow. So
thank you.
As these things should.
All right. Again, Alex, we'll talk to you behind the scenes. We'll set up another
Yes.
show in the near future. It's been an absolute pleasure once again, honestly. And everyone watching, please go and support this guy. And also, don't forget to. I would like to try and set up you and Joe Drayson, Alex, because I think the work she's doing at the PTSD camp is phenomenal. So if I can, and that's a part of the idea, try and bring and connect people together. So I would very much like to get that set up, at some point in the near future, if that's okay.
Certainly, with pleasure.
Okay, guys. So I hope you all have a lovely evening, and we'll see you very soon. Peace out.
Take care, everyone.
Independent Nationalist Network. The INN is a new organic grassroots movement which intends to put the British communities first. INN activists have come together to support each other in their activism and to create a real world social network, both internally and externally. Everybody lives in a community and has a network of people within that community, family, friends, neighbours, and work colleagues. We aim to build on those networks and strengthen them by the example of our good works within the community. We wish to preserve our heritage and our culture, whether we work as a team or on our own. We will help support and advise you on what you can do to bring that community feeling that the British people once had. We aim to have social meetings once a month, whether that would be doing activities as a group or doing activism in an attempt to recruit more of our people to join the INN. We have created a wholesome family mentality amongst those that are currently with us. We can completely understand those that are feeling a bit aggravated with those traitors in power of our country that's played a huge part in the destabilisation of our great nation. However, we as the people of Great Britain can play our part by uniting together and forming real life communities to bring back the spirit of our people back to life. Our ancestors fought tooth and nail for us, and we should pay our respects to our fallen soldiers, that we will not let our nation fall to pieces. Many of you will remember the days of being able to turn to your neighbourhood for any support that you and your family needed, able to allow your kids to play outside in a safe environment, and we will do our utmost to bring that positive mindset back to our people. But to do so, we need to grow and we need your support. We do not accept donations. We just ask for you to get involved and help in any way you possibly can. We do have channels and chat forums on the Telegram app, and the link to that is t.me/Independent Nationalist Network, and the chat room is t.me/INN chat. Or alternatively, if you don't use that platform, you can email us at innuk@protonmail.com. It's time to put our people first.